Abundant life to me is God's mercy, God's grace, God's provision, God's healing. That was a turning point in my life because not only was I losing my business, but my marriage was struggling. I was losing my hair was actually the best thing that ever happened to me because it brought me back to God. I stood at the sliding glass door and I said, no, in God's name, this is not happening. You are to retreat and you are not allowed to come in this house.
Welcome to Big Bold Moves Abundant Life. Today I'm joined by the incredible Monica Hall. She's a woman who is filled with faith, resilience, entrepreneurship, and a heart for serving others. From rebuilding after tremendous loss to creating a thriving pool design company alongside of her husband, Monica's story is a beautiful reminder that God can take every broken piece and turn it into something meaningful. Let's jump into this inspiring conversation. Monica Hall, I am so excited to have you here today. Before we dive into business, and of course we are going to talk about business, there's one thing that I love to introduce you to our community with, and that is for you to come on to Big Bold Moves Abundant Life and talk to us about some of the big bold moves that you've made. But more importantly, I love to hear from you and ask you the first initial question, and that is, how do you describe abundance?
Well, abundance, I'll go further and say abundant life because it's all about God and it's not about me. Abundant life to me is God's mercy, God's grace, God's provision, God's healing. And sometimes we get into a place in our life where we think, oh, I have to do X, Y, and Z. And yes, there is a responsibility that God gives us with our talents and our gifts that He does give us, but ultimately our abundant life comes from Him and our peace comes from Him, even in the midst of troubles. So that's what I believe abundant life is.
That is a great definition. And throughout doing these podcasts, it's so interesting to hear how so many people describe that word differently, and they all come from the heart. And speaking about heart, and we know that you have an incredible artisan pool and design company, and it is crazy amazing because you do things a little differently. But we come back to the heart because you certainly didn't just wake up one morning and there was this business waiting for you. You
No.
moved into that and it's been a great journey for you. So would you share with everybody and let us know what were some of the first things that happened to get you to where you are today?
The interesting story is in 1996, 30 years ago, I had a pool built. And that's literally how I got into the business. I ended up going to work for the builder that built my pool because at the time I have had my real estate license for over 40 years and I was in real estate, but I was taking a time out because I had children. And we had the pool built. And then I was like, oh, I think I'm ready to do something. And I ended up talking with him and ended up designing and working with him in pools. And the rest of the story is kind of lengthy, but that's really the beginning of my story.
Nice. And did you always know that you would become an entrepreneur?
That is a 50-50 question. I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I was raised with amazing parents that were entrepreneurs, and I think that has always been part of my culture.
And I think that's something that either it's inbred that you've lived in a family where people got up, did a 9 to 5, or kind of the flip side. So I think that based on what our experience is, and of course, with all the things that surround us each and every day, whether it is family, like you just mentioned, or if it's other people in our life, it gives us that track to run on and we kind of see things from that point of view. And now that you're in this construction company and it's been, gosh, you said you were in an industry for almost 30 years. And of course, we had a really great conversation before our time together here. Some of the things that you've gone through, tell me, is there something that really stands out to you that you could say, man, this really set me up for where I am today, and I've experienced some of the different challenges in my careers that have brought me to where I am. What was it that you may think set you up to become in a construction field, which is not typically a women's field, but something that you might have done to say, okay, I can do this?
After I designed pools, I ended up meeting a company that I worked for as a market development. It was a concrete company that developed and sold products into the pool industry that made concrete more aesthetically pleasing. And during that season of my life, lots of things were happening, and I ended up buying that company, which was not intentional. Just It's a long story, but ran that company for 15 years and ended up losing everything in the '09 economy. And that was a turning point in my life because not only was I losing my business, but my marriage was struggling. My daughter was in college and she got pregnant. And there was a lot of things happening around me that were just really difficult. It was a difficult season. And I was really had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was in that place in '09. And a friend of mine called me and just said, "Hey, why don't you come and do this trade show with me?" Because that was my business. I was always in trade shows and doing things, talking to people around the country, selling product. And I was pretty much not going to stay in the business. I had decided that I was going to get out because I always used to say I have the t-shirt with the bullet holes in my closet. And he convinced me to do this trade show. It ended up that I met a gentleman out of Dallas, Texas, and I ended up going to work for him. And it was a chemical company that manufactured specialty chems. And I learned a whole new side of the business and ended up working with them for 10 years. Became vice president of market development and training and spent my whole time flying around the country doing training for people in the business, training them on water chemistry. And I became, for lack of a better word, a water snob. And I still am to this day. I'm very particular about water. And that's one of the things that makes what we do different because we're very particular about how our water is treated when we start pools up, when they're first finished and the water goes in the pool. We're very particular about that. And I also vet all of our service companies that are strategic partners of ours because we do not have a service division, a weekly service division. So we have strategic partners that like I said, I vet and we don't recommend them to our clients unless I know that they are proficient in what they do. That was a real changing part for me. And meeting that gentleman and going to work in that business kept me in the business. And then I met my husband and then I ended up getting divorced, met my husband, my new husband, got married in 2014. Here we are, 2020. I came off the road in 19 and retired from my corporate job. And then we started another company. And we really didn't start building pools until about 22, 23 because of COVID and a lot of other things. My husband was working in the commercial sector in water and big water. I call like YMCA's and aquatic centers and things like that. So his career is also quite lengthy. He's been in the industry almost as long as I have. So we have a lot of background in water.
So, it's interesting because you think of pool, you think, okay, we do great designs, and I can't wait to talk to you about that in a moment, but great designs, great installs, everything is efficient, everything works really well. You have all that amazing background behind you with the construction and then what you just said with the water, but nobody ever thinks like, oh my gosh, you got to put the water in the pool, and for the water to be healthy, that's sometimes not even a consideration. Like when I immediately think of building a pool, I think that adds you to the list of what makes us better and greater than maybe other companies out there. You raised the bar. So definitely want to talk more about the pools, more about the construction and what makes you unique in the industry, especially here locally. And I imagine you can probably take that information and share it with other states so they can benefit from what you all do
Yes.
differently. But I also want to hear a little bit about your heart, the heart of who you are. People, they meet you, you see confidence, you see how you walk into a room, but that's an immediate. We all look at somebody and we think, oh my gosh, look at them. But when people that first meet you, talk with you, what are some of the things that might be a surprise when they get to talk with you and get to hear from you and hear your heart and hear who you are? What would you want people to know?
I think the biggest thing is that in my journey of 30 years, people think, oh, success is always the first thing. Oh, they've always been successful. But it's not true. I think people go through seasons in life where there are difficulties, and that makes us better people. During that season, when I ended up losing my company in '09, I also developed alopecia. I became part of the Alopecia Foundation, and I have alopecia areata, which my alopecia is stress induced. So during that season, I lost my hair 3 times. That journey was quite remarkable because initially, at first, when I lost my hair, I wore a wig for a year and I hid, and people really didn't know. And it was funny because people said, "Oh, you got extensions." And I'm like, "Yeah, I always wanted to do that." But through that journey, when my hair came back, I went through another season in 2013 where I lost my hair again. And that summer, At the time, I was in a relationship with my current husband, and we were not in a good place emotionally, spiritually. We were both trying to figure out where we were going, and neither one of us were really wanting to ever get married again. We were both pretty bitter and pretty just not happy about this, where we'd come from, and we didn't know how to fix it. But in that season, I lost my hair the second time, and as I was losing it, we were living together, and current husband said, "Well, why don't you just shave it off?" And I said, "Excuse me, what are you talking about?" And he says, "Well, the more you stress about losing it, the more hair you lose. And the more hair you lose, the more stressed you get. The more stressed you get, the more hair you lose. So why don't you just cut it off?" And anyway, short story, he convinced me to do that. And I literally, August of 13, I went out into the world with no hair. Initially, I didn't think I was going to survive that. The Lord had another story, another season in my life. And people now ask me, they said, I have a picture on my phone of the day after my husband shaved my head, and it's the day that I walked back into church. And it's interesting because that was a turning point in my life, and I didn't really realize it till later. And as I tell people now, it was losing my hair was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, because it brought me back to God, and it brought me back to my fundamental roots of knowing that God is ultimately my abundance, and I can face tomorrow with God no matter what the season. And doesn't mean that the seasons have been easy ever since then. We've had other seasons of highs and lows. And I did lose my hair one other time after that. And but currently I haven't lost my hair for 11 years. I haven't had any issues. And God has been so good to me with that story. I've been able to speak life into other people's lives through it. And I was blessed. It was a season of difficulty, but it was also a season of great joy.
That's beautiful. And I know you told me a little bit more about that story, and that really touched my heart too. And when you just expressed it now and you said, get back to my roots, I immediately thought, oh my gosh, how profound is that? You think of roots, right?
Yeah,
Gotta
right.
get my roots done. But it
Yeah.
brought you back to just the whole opportunity to take something that was not a positive thing, flip it around to something that was positive. And I know with the stories that you told me, God showed up in so many different places for you. And it's probably, like you said, one of the biggest turning points in your life. And if there are people out here that are listening to your story, and I used to think back, and my introduction to finding and getting back to my roots was similar. Sometimes we have to get to our lowest lows before we make those steps forward. So
Amen.
that is amazing, amazing. I love that. And maybe somebody will want to know more about your story. I'm sure that they can connect with you and hear more about that.
Absolutely. Would love to talk more about that.
So, one of the other things that we love to talk about here is going through our journeys and feeling that we've got the highs and the lows. One thing that we often hear with people who are starting their businesses, and I feel like God lines us up, puts the people in our path clearly with the experience that you've had over the past, brought you to where you can see yourself today and the things that you're experiencing today. But were there any times in your careers or career, the one that you want to focus on specifically, it's up to you, where you found yourself in a place where maybe it was a financial upheaval or something happened where you thought, oh my gosh, I've lost it all. Now what do I do? And if that is an answer that you can say, oh yeah, I can think of that immediately, what were some of the things that you did, the first few steps to get you up and out of that financial situation?
In '09, when I lost everything and went through my divorce, I was basically underground. And through that process of God bringing me another opportunity in the same field was a blessing. And then my husband was also at the time working through getting his contractor's license to start building pools. And he had been in the industry already about 15 years. So through that, we corporately worked together and started rebuilding. And going back to godly perspective, there's the whole principle of tithing and the whole principle of what that looks like and how God will keep us safety in that, because God says through the tithe that he will protect you. He will protect your family, your crops, your health, and keep your crops safe. So even in the midst of all of that, there is a sense, again, going back to abundance, even when you have lack, God says that He is always with us and He will never leave us or forsake us. So I think that even in times of financial issues, it still is a place of safety that you have to find peace in that. It's not always easy. You have to be able to be vulnerable to yourself. I think that's the key, and to realize that God is really there. And it doesn't always look the way we think it's going to look, but God did say that He would never leave us or forsake us.
That's great. And I know that you alluded a few times to you and your husband going back to church and getting back to the roots. So explain to our audience, what does a healthy relationship look like now compared to maybe years ago?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel led to share something. So, in our relationship, of course, we're living together. So, we were not married, which was not godly. And during that season, after we went back to church, we got involved in a small group. We got involved with some people, and they became our mentors. And during that season, as God started to put the pieces back together in our life, we had given permission to this couple to speak into our lives. And we were at a small group, and my husband, at the time was not my husband, said to the gentleman, said, God is really blessing us and putting our lives back together. And this gentleman said very boldly to Murray, my husband, that's amazing, but God cannot truly bless your life until you're married. And that was a turning point, another turning point for us, because we were like both not really, we were, no, we're not getting married again. So we don't want anything part of it. And that was at the beginning, early spring of 14. And then literally we were married in November that year. And God, again, He had taken broken glass and put it all back together. But a very interesting piece that I have to share was in this fall, September, October, there was a men's weekend, and my husband had gone to that. And then right after that, there was a ladies' weekend. And I was in a room teamed up with somebody that I really didn't know. And we were having a conversation, and it was 2 nights. So you got to know people. And I told her my story. She wanted to ask me about my story, and I got to share my testimony. And I have never really seen this woman again. This is an interesting story. So she said to me, she says, you need to separate. I'm looking at her like, what? She goes, you need to separate. She says, God can fix all that. God can make it all new again. I'm like, what? So she says, you need to separate physically because God can make that new. And when you're married, when you get married in November, it will be new again, and God will heal that, and God will restore that. And I was like, sure, that sounds great. I don't think that's going to be okay with my significant other at the time, my fiance. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I came home from that retreat, and he and I chatted, and he was like, so you're there's I really wanted to tell him, but I was very not sure. And he's, what is it? What is it that you don't want to tell me? And I told him, and he's like, okay. And it was like, what? We were renting a home at that time, and it had a guest room. So he packed his stuff out of our master bedroom and moved over to the other side of the house. And literally, we did not have any relations until we were married. And that was about 6 or 7 weeks. And when we got married, it was amazing. It was like God had restored it. And during that season, we also had our mentors and our pastor come over, and we did communion at our home and bless our home and bless our marriage. God completely restored our lives, and it was amazing. So, for all those people out there, yes, there is hope, and God can do a miracle in anyone's life if you let them.
Monica, you tell me that you have a mission for your company and a mission for your business. So would you mind sharing that with me and the audience?
So we have a key verse that we have on all of our marketing, and it's breaking bread over water. And actually the verse is referenced is Acts 2:46, which talks about how they broke bread daily together in the homes. And When we build a pool, I always bring a artisan basket to our clients that has sourdough bread in it and herbs and oil and bottle of wine and some little artisan cookies. And it basically is a way to say thank you for trusting us with their project and sharing the word. And a lot of times we get to do that. We get to break bread with our clients and share our time together and get to talk about the Lord. So we're blessed to do that. And God gave me breaking bread over water one day in 24 when we came up with the name Artisan Pool and Design. We were just talking one day and literally it was like a download. God goes, breaking bread over water. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I started looking for a verse and found Acts 2:46 and it was amazing. And it's just stuck with us this entire time. So we're blessed that we have that and we always want to share our beliefs and our faith with our clients. So that's kind of how we do that.
I have to think that that is the best kind of pool to have.
Exactly. Thank you.
Just hearing your stories, and I sit here and I smile. You can take what may be broken, like you said. I love the image of the shards of glass or the pieces of glass and just pull that all back together again. And it builds not only a relationship with the person that you are in relationship for the rest of your life, but also the fact that you work together and you bring that element to each and every job that you do. And I'm sure that there's times that there's a little ruffle here and there, but the bottom line is you've built that solid, strong, amazing foundation. And speaking of foundations, and when you build and create a pool, you have to start with a really amazing foundation in order to build it beautifully and so that it sustains for many, many, many years. So we're going to transition over into the actual construction of the artisan designs and pools and spas that you have created, which are unique, and talk a little bit about that because I feel like it is amazing that we have the ability to make changes and do things that are going to suit the people better. So why don't you talk about that for a little bit and let me know and our audience know about what makes you different when it comes to that.
My husband, he is the license holder of the business, and together we have a team and we have a design center and we have a couple designers. The process really is quite simple. People contact us, we get with them and design a new concept or remodel because we do remodels as well. And one of the things that really sets us apart is our spas. We design our spas for relaxation and therapy, and all of our spa seating is reclined seating. So in the industry today, the standard spa is a 90-degree seat. So it's basically just literally a 90-degree seat. It's straight back like that. And all of our seats are reclined. So they're all made so that you can sit in that spa for a lengthy period of time and you can enjoy it. You can get therapy with it. And all of our return jets, most spas come with the 90-degree seat and they have one jet that sits in your middle back. Well, we have up to 3 jets per person. And we also make those spas for our clients specifically. So in a lot of cases, we have a husband who's 6'5" and a wife who's 5'6". It happens. And we can actually alter the seats. So we put a armrest in between the seats and we make the seats the right height so that the water is here on each person regardless of their height. So we're very customized in what we do. My husband is a hydraulics expert. So one of the things that we pride ourselves on is construction practices. And we don't believe in leaks. Some of the things that we don't do, which in construction technology and construction conversation, people that are in construction would understand this, but we don't use flex pipe. And the reason why is flex pipe will leak at some point. We heat bend pipe, which basically means if you have to go around a curve, we take a piece of PVC pipe and we heat bend it and we bend it to the curve. So there's no corrugated flexing. There's pipe that's not corrugated and actually bends because in time that will leak over time. The other things that make us unique is we have a very strict schedule on construction. We have a construction software. The client can see what we're doing, where the schedule is, and we pride ourselves on working very efficiently with our subcontractors and our staff to make sure that our pools are built within a reasonable amount of time. This lot, we just finished a project and we were just doing some in our construction meeting, having a conversation. And from the day of dig to the day that water is going in this pool is 7 weeks, which is unheard of. Most people take 3 to 6 months to build a pool. I usually tell my clients 3 months minimum, and it could take up to 6 months because one of the things in Florida we can't control is the weather and sometimes supply chain. We're coming into rainy season, and that will definitely slow us down. So we have to take into consideration those things. We're very blessed to have a very amazing operations manager who has very deep background in scheduling. We have a couple of project managers, and they're very good at communicating, and they all work really well together. So my job is mainly marketing and taking care of back behind the scenes, working with making sure that people pay and our subs get paid. We all work as a very close team.
This episode is brought to you by Fearlessly Debt Free. Do you have great income, but the debt just doesn't seem to be going down fast enough? Just know that you are not alone. At Fearlessly Debt Free, I help people just like you pay everything off. Credit cards, loans, even mortgages, in half to a third of the time, for half to a third of what you owe. And no, this isn't budgeting, it's not debt consolidation or bankruptcy. It's math, it's strategy, and it's automatic. And it works. How would it feel to be completely debt-free and to start building incredible wealth much, much faster? Schedule your free Debt to Wealth discovery call today at fearlesslydebtfree.com and take your next steps fearlessly. Wonderful. Talking about community and team and marketing and all the things that go into building a business. I know that recently you joined the Rotary Club, and I know that where we met was at networking, and we got to talk earlier, and you talked to me a little bit about the Rotary Club and how you've really been drawn to such an organization. So backed behind your business is the ability to get out there and of course share your story, but you do come up against these beautiful, amazing clubs and different organizations in our community. And I know that you're very community focused. Tell me a little bit about the Rotary Club and what it means to you.
Well, the first year when we incorporated in 2020, we both had come out of commercial sector of the business. So we were really commercially oriented. And when we incorporated our company, we came up with the name Dynamic Fluid Solutions. Sounds great in commercial world, but it's like, what do you do exactly? Nobody knew. So then we thought, wow, we really need to do something different. So at the end of 24, we did a DBA with the state under our corporation. And for marketing, Artisan Pool and Design was born. So if you look at that name, it's only been around about a year and a half, which is like, what? Nobody knew the name. It's like, wait, I'd never heard of you. Who are you? So I tell people, Dynamic Fluid Solutions, what do we do? Well, we don't sell toilets. That's the joke I always tell people. So I had to go out and actually create space in the marketplace for Artisan. It didn't exist. We had no website. We had nothing. So I literally all of last year spent the whole year just developing everything I possibly could, all the marketing, all the website, photography, social media. It was a lot. But in that, of course, I also was very interested in a non-for-profit and trying to figure out how and where and what are we passionate about. And we have a lot of things that we're passionate about. We want to serve people. We believe in giving back. So initially, I was connected with a gal from Big Brothers Big Sisters and got involved with that last year, and it was great and loved it. But I felt very pigeonholed. I couldn't do everything, and I wanted to do more things, and it was like there's not enough money to go around. So I met a gentleman who currently was the president of the Rotary at the time. He's finishing his president stint in June this year. And he and I were in networking together. And he said, hey, I'm the current president of Rotary, and we're doing the 23rd annual Food and Wine Fest, the Suncoast Food and Wine Fest. It's put on and sponsored by the Lakewood Ranch Rotary Club. And I was like, okay, I don't even know what that is. I can't, 23 years. What are you talking about? Like, how do I not know this? So we started chatting about it. He's like, oh, you should be a sponsor. So long story short, I ended up being a sponsor in November last year, did the actual event. It was amazing. And then, of course, immediately he said, oh, you now have to come and visit. You got to come check it out. You got to become a member. So I went and checked it out in December and then started going to a couple meetings. And then finally, through a process, just was inducted literally a week ago. And it's been great. And the great thing about Rotary is you get involved with this club, and they have a huge plethora of non-for-profits that they support. So you have the opportunity to support more than just one thing. And for me, it's been great because part of my big thing with non-for-profits is vetting them and making sure the money goes to the cause, not in someone's pocket. So that was a big deal for me. And I didn't have really time. So I was like, how am I going to do that? And Rotary does that. They vet these non-for-profits. They check it out. They have a process. So I don't have to do that. So it's so great because now I feel confident that when I'm involved in something, that I get to be part of something that is giving back, and it's wonderful. And I'm super excited. I'm going to actually, for Memorial Day, my husband and I are going to the National Cemetery, and we're going to be part of putting flags on the tombstones of our veterans, which I've never done that. And I'm super excited about it.
That's amazing. And that just, in my mind, it just rounds you out even more and more because you do take such a great interest in our community. And you're right. With all these organizations out there, you want to make sure that if you're going to give your hard earned to something or to someone, you want to make sure that it is getting to the cause that you are really passionate about. And I love that they vet for you. I know that you talked about the Food and Wine Festival coming up, and it happens every year. So when anybody is listening to this, whether it's today or 2 years from now, there's a good chance that they can also participate in such a really great cause. And I'm so happy about that. And that we find these things that pick us up and give us that newfound excitement in the things that we do. So there's probably a million more stories that we could talk about and that I've learned about you when we had that conversation. But one thing that was really very, oh my gosh, this is amazing, was the Milton story, the Hurricane Milton story. And I would love for you to share that story and tell us exactly how that kind of went down and what happened and what the outcome was.
Well, that's interesting because we live on the river. We were all preparing for the hurricane, and we were literally, that was not, we did not expect any type of, I mean, it seemed like it was going to pass by and we were all fine. And we had some, my daughter was here and son-in-law, and I had some neighbors over, and we were all just hanging out. And we were we really didn't go outside for a while. We were just hanging out inside. And then we decided to go outside for a few minutes to check out to see what was happening. And the water was coming up, and it was actually coming up a lot further than we had expected. And so we decided, okay, I guess we really need to prepare for whatever is happening. We don't really know. And within an hour, we all disbanded. Our daughter and son-in-law live around the corner from us. They went back to their house. Our neighbor went back. We all were doing our stuff. Within an hour, the water was literally coming into the pool and over the pool and coming up in towards the house. And we got everything up off the floor as much as we could. And we live on a peninsula. So the water, we got our stuff that we had to get together, our dog, and we got in our trucks, and literally the water was more than halfway up my shin in the driveway. Got in the trucks and left. And interestingly enough, as my husband was packing the car, I literally remember people saying, you have the authority to call on God. And I did. I stood at the sliding glass door and I said, no, in God's name, this is not happening. You are not this, you are water, you are to retreat, and you are not allowed to come in this house. I was a lot more demanding than that. I'll just put it that way. I was not as, that sounded very kind of casual. I wasn't very casual when I was doing it because it was like in the moment. And I was very authoritative. I was like, it's not happening. And we got back. So we left. And about 2 hours later, our son-in-law called because they had gone back to their house, and they're up further into the neighborhood, and the water didn't come up to their house like it did ours. It came up to the lip of their driveway and started to retreat. And he called us and he said, it was about 1:30 in the morning. And he called and said, the water's retreated a foot. let's go. So my husband took us over to their house with the dog, and then my son-in-law and my husband went to our shop where we keep our equipment, and we have a shop around the corner, and got the shop vacs, and they came over here, worked all through the night, and by 6 o'clock in the morning, the house was, we were good because we had only gotten about a quarter inch of water in about 20% of our house. And they had gotten it out. We didn't lose power, turned the air on. So we were dehumidifying immediately, got all the stuff vacuumed up, and we had no loss. We had a refrigerator we lost in our garage, okay, and we lost one small refrigerator in our outdoor kitchen. The amazing story behind it is, though, that all around us, our neighbors had 3 feet of water, 2 feet of water in their homes and lost everything. They lost their kitchens, their drywall. And for us, it was a little humbling. Almost felt, I felt guilty in a way that I had come through with nothing really to say. We had no repairs. And the funny story is that I had a client at the time, and a couple weeks later, I was at their house and we were chatting, and they're believers, and we were sharing, and I was telling them about the whole thing that happened. And I said, yeah, I lost this refrigerator in the garage, and that was really it. And they said, oh, you need a refrigerator? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah. And they go, oh, you can have that refrigerator. They had just redone their kitchen, and they had the refrigerator that was in the kitchen, they had put it out in the patio. And they're like, yeah, we cleaned it out, we unplugged it, it's brand new, it's fine. I'm like, what? No, you can have it. I'm like, I'll pay you for it. No, you can have it. So God provided a refrigerator on top of all of that and gave me a refrigerator for free. I was blown away. God just abundantly more. And that story is, there are no words except for thank you.
That's
I
amazing.
was immeasurably blessed.
So awesome. So great. So great. I love it. And we talk about miracles and we talk about all the things that might just happen by coincidence. Mm-mm, I don't believe so. You commanded it. You told that water to recede, to retreat. No, thank you. And you took charge. And that's what God says. Like we have to go to Him for everything. Just drop all the baggage at the feet of the cross and
Yeah.
see what He's going to do and giving Him the glory in those seasons and not just say, oh, it was coincidence. It's amazing. It really, really is. And so we're going to now transition to our departure from our conversation, which has been amazing. And I would love to hear from you. Monica, tell me, what does the next chapter look like? If you could imagine anything, what would that look like for you and your family?
This is interesting because in 24, when we did our rebrand, we also hired a business coach, and he's also a believer. And the interesting thing at that time was I saw us doing all this marketing, building the business, building it to sell it and sell it. And now I think God is really changing the trajectory of our path. I think now it's more about legacy. And I think now it's, sorry, I think it's more about touching people's lives. Our pool company is about building pools, but it's really about people's lives. And we have a property that we have a property that we're waiting on God to show us when to build our home for our company. And when we bought the property, it has a small house on it that's empty. We use it for storage and things like that, and our equipment is at this property. But God told us that, and He gave us a name for the property, and it's called the Sanctuary. I don't know what that means yet. I do know what that means, but I don't know the full story. And we have a vision, and I think God is going to make that vision real. And I think that that place is going to be a place to bring people together to honor God and have Bible studies and feed the homeless and things that are passionate to us, and caring for believers who are hurting and caring for the lost that need to know Jesus. And I think there's more to our story that I don't really know.
He knows. He knows, right? So amazing to really get deeper into conversations and get to the heart. Clearly, there's a heart there, and the abundance that comes with you building such a profitable and wonderful business can then transform your new property and to give glory to where it really matters. That's what it's all about. And getting back to those roots, like you say. So, we are going to close a conversation. It's been such an amazing conversation to sit here with you, Monica, and get to know you a little bit. I think we'll be friends for a long, long time after this, after these few conversations. But sometimes there's opportunities for us to reach out to people on many, many different levels. And clearly, you have such a great surrounding of not only community in your space and your business and the people that you surround yourself with. I always invite you to let us know how people can get in touch with you and let us know a little bit more about that connection and how they can do that.
Well, our website is Artisan, it's Artisan, pooldesign.com. We have a design center at 1504 53rd Avenue West in Bradenton, which is 70 going straight west and just west of 41 behind the Wawa. And we have our direct phone is 941-212-6682. I'm always personally available. So my cell phone is 321-217-5322. Anyone can call me anytime. We are on social media, Artisan Pool Design in social media on Facebook and on Instagram. We'd love for them to follow and share us and like us, and we'll follow and share back. We would love to talk with anyone that's interested in looking at what it looks like to build a pool, what the costs are, remodel a pool. We also do community projects, so we are in the commercial sector as well. So we do remodels on commercial pools, and we are in the process of getting our commercial license, so we will be able to build commercial pools in the future. So that's part of our future plans. And we do equipment change outs, we replace heaters, we also do troubleshooting. And so a lot of people contact us for that because my husband is known in this area as a troubleshooter. He's been in the business in this area for almost 30 years as well. So has a very long background in the business.
I'm certain that after people hear your story and hear all the things that you've shared with us today, that people will be contacting you for one of many reasons. And thank you so much, Monica Hall, for representing such a beautiful company and a beautiful heart. And I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and talk with us. My desire is always to bring people like yourself to an opportunity to share your stories because I know that you will inspire others. And everybody has a story. Life isn't always, what do they say, rainbows and lollipops. So we need to navigate through some of those storms and some of those difficulties that we have. And you've done it so beautifully. And I'm excited to hear feedback and to hear how people can then reach out to you to get more information, to talk to you about pools or talk to you about roots. So thank you so much for the gift of your time, Monica. And I will talk to you soon.
Hi.
Monica, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your faith, and the beautiful story behind Artisan Pool and Design. Your journey reminds us that difficult seasons do not have to define us. They can strengthen us, redirect us, and prepare us for something even greater. To learn more about Monica, her company, and the incredible work that they're doing in our community, be sure to connect with Artisan Pool and Design. And remember, your story matters, your bold moves matter, and your abundant life may be waiting on the other side of your next courageous step.
Big bold moves, abundant life, fearlessly debt free, we're doing it right. Cutting through the chaos, clarity shines, wealth on the horizon, it's finally time. Strategy strong and direction clear. Let's build a future without the fear. You're not alone, we've got your back. Rewriting your story, getting life on.